welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. This is our flagship series that we do when the Chief Justice of India is about to take over. It is titled Chief Justice of India Opportunities and Suggestions. This time it is for Justice Bhushan Gavai, Chief Justice of India Opportunities and Suggestions. And what a way to start the show. I have Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi joining me today. And since this has going to have a world over audience, let me give a short introduction of Dr. Singhvi. We all know he is a four-time sitting member of Parliament, eminent jurist. He is formerly chair of Parliamentary Standing Committee on Commerce, Law and Home, three very important subjects. He is also a member of the all-important Congress Working Committee, the apex decision-making party body of the country's oldest political party. He served as the Additional Solicitor General of India and also is the senior national spokesperson of the Indian National Congress. In addition, currently is also the chairman of the Congress Department on Law, Human Rights and RTI. Good to see you and thank you for your time. As always, it is a pleasure speaking to you, but this time is going to be extra special. We're going to speak on the incoming Chief Justice of India, Dr. Bhushan Gavai. And your opening comments on Justice Bhushan Gavai as a judge and a person. Over to you.
Thank you, Tarun. I come here first and foremost amongst my multiple hats as a lawyer, as a practitioner, as a student of law, as somebody who is in and out of courts every working day, every day of the year for decades now. And let me start by saying that I had occasion first time to appear before Justice Gavai years ago, more than a few decades ago in Nagpur. And I have not known him at all otherwise than in the court. I saw him for the first time then. And ever since then, and much more so now in the Supreme Court, I carried an impression which gets fortified and reinforced each time. That of a very pragmatic person. A person who is not interested in platitudes. I would call him a no-nonsense judge with a great result orientation focus. He is not an operation successful patient dies judge. He is not a person who will give platitudes and sermons, but he will try. He can be wrong, he can be right as all of us. None of us should claim infallibility, but he will try and do a solution to the case, justice to the case, and in accordance with law. And hardly have I seen him in his very number of years here now as a person who leaves ambiguities, blanks, equivocations. I think that itself may sound something obvious and simple, but it's an important quality, more conspicuous by its absence than by its presence in persons and judges. Of course, all of this comes with a very sharp mind. He's a sharp, quick judge. He doesn't take minutes or moments to come to the heart of the matter, to the nub of the matter. And as a person and as a judge, his track record shows, his reported judgments show that he has no hesitation once he is convinced about a case. Some of the great liberty judgments have come from him. Now, I'm not talking of the political cases, although the political cases decide a lot of important principles of law. I'm interested in the legal principle, even if it rises in the political principle. Even if it rises in a political case. I've done all the political cases before him, but he has established legal principles of far-reaching nature. For example, in the PMLA, in the Sisodia case. For example, in applying that even to more stringent statutes like UAPA. And across the spectrum into major foundational decisions on IBC, which we all cite now. About what happens after a plan and how much can you modify it and all that. Lastly, as a person and as judge, everybody knows that he comes from a political family. And I think it's extremely creditable that over decades now, I don't know how long, he must have been a judge for close to, in some form or the other, just under more than 2 and under 3 decades. And I don't think he's allowed that to in any manner affect his objectivity, his sense of fairness and decision making. I will end this part by telling you a very interesting little anecdote, not because it's political, but because it's about Justice Gavai's personality. We started the Rahul Gandhi defamation case, in which he was disqualified concurrently by the lower courts, would have cost him 8 years of his political life. When the matter started, I remember it was late August of that year, maybe a couple of years ago. He has this light touch about him, Justice Gavai. So Mahesh Jethalani and I were opposing each other. So he started the matter with a very, something which took us aback. He said, "Look, Dr. Singhvi, I knew your father very well. He's a leading public figure and all. And I also knew your father very well, Mr. Mahesh Jethalani." And he kind of paused, as if any of us would have any objection. And he has this touch of humor and a light touch also. So obviously I said, that would not qualify as any ground for not hearing this case either way. And Mr. Jethalani said the same thing. There was no issue. And then he took up the case and said, "Okay, then let's get down to it. Okay, let's take it 2 weeks later." 2 weeks later, he heard both sides, rough and ready, practical, comes to the point. So about roughly I did for 30, 40 minutes. Mahesh did the same thing for 30 minutes. And he reserved and dictated an order in open court all over in about, just under an hour. Now, you could easily keep on being, "Oh, itna bada case hai, such a, this thing, that thing, so many overtones, who and ha and ho, and adjourn it or repost it." That's just not Justice Gavai. That's what I wanted to say about the person and the judge.
So, given the kind of practice you have, you are doing extensive arguments before the top court, the Supreme Court, every single day. So you get a lot of opportunity to soak in the court atmosphere. You see them in their different moods when they are in pressure, after lunch, before lunch, on a day when their board is very heavy, or some important matters are there, many of which you argue, but some matters which may have high pressure. How have you seen him through these moods? And what would you like to say if you reflect on the court atmosphere? What would you like to say?
I think there are very few judges who conduct the court with such aplomb, precision, and an ambience of the light touch as Justice Gavai. I say it from having appeared before him when he was a much junior judge, sitting even before the time when he was sitting with Justice, his fellow judge and friend from Nagpur, Justice Bobde, and other judges. Right from when he was a junior judge, as I said, his disposition is very amiable, very rounded. He's not angular and abrasive.
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
Right, you can continue.
He's not abrasive and angular for the sake of being that. So his court atmosphere is always extremely nice, warm, and receptive. And this is across for all sides. As I said, he has a light touch. But let me tell you that he's a very strong judge also. You can't play around with him. You can't take liberties. You can't not follow the spirit of his orders, get away with contemptuous acts, actions, omissions. You can't, in a nutshell, try to be too clever by half. As it happens, in all litigation. And remember, all of us are under a lot of pressure. Every judge in this court, every lawyer in this court is under a lot of pressure. Pressure of numbers, pressure of issues, pressure of acrimony, pressure of arguments, etc., etc. Amongst all that, to keep that light touch going, he'll crack a joke once in a while, he'll diffuse the situation, he'll remind you of an anecdote. That's, I think, it shows a certain aplomb and a disposition which is so balanced. He knows what he wants out of that day, and he does it without, ruffling feathers, without, most importantly, throwing his weight around in the sense that, look, I'm a judge of the Supreme Court, therefore, I have that pomposity. Sometimes unintended pomposity comes in. That is not Justice Gavai. Sometimes that status flowing from wealth, power, and position comes in unintentionally even. That is not Justice Gavai at all. So I think these are very important qualities of head and heart. I think it stand him in very good stead all these years. His tenure is unfortunately very short, but they've stood him in good stead till he has reached this stage. And I have no doubt that that will change in any manner to the bad or to the contrary in the next 5 months or 7 months.
Before my next question, I draw one of my questions from this answer, which means he holds his position, in a sense, very lightly in that sense. That doesn't go over that I'm sitting on this chair. It's more about the work that he does. Is that so?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always like to give this example. I don't mean it for Justice Gavai or for Judge X or Y. But, when we were young, we used to suddenly be told, oh, stand on the side of the corridor, the judge is coming. Some high courts have corridors where judges have to walk to their courtroom. The chamber is far away. Some of them have the chamber just behind the courtroom now in the modern buildings. So when they walk, you have the chopdars walking in front with a mace and those lovely red robes. And you have a single judge or a division bench walking behind it. Now, it's very difficult, Tarun. If you put yourself in that position, walking with these chopdars with the mace, not to think of yourself as close to God, as close to divinity, as close to a special pedestal on which the Constitution has put you. We're all human, and he's as human as us. So I always joke that there is a joke, a phrase in Latin, which should be repeated every time when the judges are walking like that with the mace in front. This too shall pass, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. Now, he has it inbuilt into him. He knows he's going to do a job, get on with it, do it. You can't do it, defer it, but just get on with it. Don't be so full of yourself. That's all.
Thank you for making that observation. And now reflecting on his 5-month tenure, what I want to know is, what would be the reforms that he can do in the limited tenure he has, which can have a maximum impact? In your view, what can be done?
Now, here it's important, and this may be a longish answer because this is the substantive question you asked, to divide and segregate. A person has a tenure of, let's say, 6 months, as Justice Gavai does. I'm just talking roughly. Now, what can he do which will leave a mark as a Chief Justice is a relatively shorter term question, which he must plan. Equally, he must plan the longer term question, because it's not this Chief Justice, but there's an institutional continuity involved. So let me address both of them very quickly. In the longer term, he must plan, and I've said so on your show and elsewhere, I was the first to say it, as in politics we have, this is not meant to be political, you must have a CMP, a Common Minimum Program. The Common Minimum Program means that Justice Gavai, who's now going to be Chief Justice Gavai, for at least the next 5, I would say, minimum 3, but ideally 5 Chief Justices. I think we have enough at the moment, 5 incoming Chief Justices in future, must make a broad CMP with them. That the institution requires these structural longer-term changes, which neither I can do in 5 months, nor you can do in 1 year, nor you can do in 2 years. We need to decide. Now, you can disagree on 10 things, but you can agree on those 5 things, which you, as the first Chief Justice, me as the second, and 3 or 4 more, will act upon on the same continuity basis without zigzags and mid-course interruptions and corrections. In India, a lot of things don't work because there are mid-course zigzags and corrections not required. Take your time to decide your CMP, but once you decide it, agree amongst these 5 to implement it come what may. My wish list in that longer term would be, first and foremost, an informal internal CMP that we will take these actions if our recommendations are delayed in terms of appointments. I'm not saying what you will do, but you can decide what you will do. For example, if I return the recommendation about Tarun Nangia's appointment a second time from the collegium, and the government still dilly-dallies, as happened in some small number of cases, then we will issue a notice of contempt starting with the law secretary. If we don't do it still, then we may issue a notice to the law minister. I can guarantee you, I've said so on the shows earlier, you do it once, and I'm not talking about A or B. You do it once, and you won't have this second reference being further delayed. Second, you will make sure that your own collegium will not take more than X weeks to reject or clear a name. Again, it's not a matter of clearing you or rejecting you, but you must do it within this time-bound schedule. These 5 Chief Justices decided there's no power on earth which can delay the Supreme Court decision. Third, each of these 5 Chief Justices will decide that if the High Court similarly will not delay each High Court its own collegium decision more than the same X weeks. These are very simple, non-rocket science things. These same 5 can decide as the common minimum program suggested by me. This is just a wish list plucked out of ad hoc manner. That the court infrastructure. And the court infrastructure, we will not do so much for the Supreme Court, doesn't require it that much. Of course, you keep doing it. I'm not saying don't do it. But, and not even so much for the high courts. High courts can take care of themselves. But we'll do this in the district courts. And you must start with the weakest links in your across the length and breadth of the country. Now, you don't have to actually do it. You just have to exhort, push, lead, catalyze. And when the Supreme Court takes up, okay, we have found in the first lot, say these 40 district courts. We'll take them one by one and push these. And if the 5 Chief Justices decide this, you can see the radical change. You don't have to start for the whole country. The 5th wish list in the longer term common minimum program, not restricted to the 5 months of Justice Gavai, should be tribunalization. We agree amongst ourselves that the nominees we will put in the tribunal selection committees, which are always one Supreme Court nominee, we will discuss with them that they will choose persons only with these qualities. Let me be very frank and blunt. Today, tribunalization has largely failed, not because of anything else, not because of concept, largely failed because of the kind of people we are appointing. We are the few, we meaning I, people like me, who appear in all tribunals. We are very concerned about the quality of our tribunal human resource material. I'm not naming tribunals, we all know. And they can be high, they can be low, but the point is there is a very indifferent attention to quality. How? Whose fault is it? It's my fault if I have selected you. Don't run away from that fault. You may be not such a good member of a tribunal, but a large part of it lies with me. I did not do sufficient due diligence. If 5 Chief Justices following, including Justice Gavai, were to take that upon themselves, there would be a continuity and you would see a radical change. I have more examples, but this is the longer term. If you now want to return to the shorter term that is focused during Justice Gavai's, I think he must choose and select. All of us know that 5 months is too short a lifetime in any career to do anything in a major structural sense. But take, for example, his predecessor, his current incumbent, Chief Justice Khanna. I think very wisely and sensibly decided he will select one category. I'll give you an example only. NMDs, non-miscellaneous day matters, the semi-long matters, not the short matter, not the truly long regular hearing, although some of them can be. And in a no-nonsense manner, put your nose to the grindstone and start doing them. He did a large number of them. A large chunk of the NMDs, because all the courts did, not he, all the 15-odd courts on Tuesdays and partly on Wednesdays have done this for the last 6 months. Now, the synergical combined effort and result of some, 15-odd benches on an average, doing this on 2 days of the week for a particular category called NMD. The statistics are not out, but I can tell you that I expect Justice Khanna to publish them probably, or Justice Gavai to publish them. There would be a marked diminution in this large category languishing before Justice Khanna took it up. Just like to an extent his predecessor took up the constitutional benches languishing. That is Justice Chandrachud. Another shorter term thing would be that you must categorize and say, okay, I will start with only more than 10-year SLPs on 2 days a week. The number of more than 10-year-old SLPs is not large. And slowly, after 2 or 3 months, make it all SLPs above 5 years old. Just attack them. Maybe even reduce the miscellaneous days and say, okay, 4 days a week we'll do that. Or 3 days a week we'll do that. I'm not suggesting nitty-gritties. I'm saying the plans are very clear, the model is clear. So you have attacked NMD as Chief Justice Khanna. You, Justice Gavai, can attack them as more than 10-year-old SLPs. And that's a very big scourge and black mark on your Supreme Court to have more than 10 years, some are 10, 20, 15 years, just because they're not tracked. And maybe it'll come down to 5 years and above. A third is, take up a category that I will have all the matters involving individuals, not corporates. It'll require screening by bright young, interns and persons and lawyers in the registry. We'll take up all matters involving more than 65-year-old persons, human beings. I'm not talking of pensioners alone, but people who have grievances and are genuinely not big corporate honchos, but genuinely of a class which is above 65 and is not economically a strong class. Imagine the healing touch he will give if he disposes of, let's say, 1,000 cases of 65 plus people, whether as respondents or as appellates. Another category he can pick up is, now these are all definitions which have to be screened by his bright young people. Genuinely rural cases. You'll be surprised that in semi-rural or rural categories, some of them travel up to the Supreme Court. There are not very many. They're languishing. They are not sensational, they are not political, they are not high profile, they are not eyeball catching, and they languish. But imagine the blessings you get either way of the persons who get the healing touch from a decision of these cases. Now, if Justice Gavai was to just pluck out ad hoc 3 or 5 categories like this in the next 5 months, imagine that he would be able to show concretely that, look, during my Chief Justiceship, we attacked these categories and reduced them. And of course, along with the longer common minimum program, which will be an institutional continuity for the Supreme Court for this and the next 5 Chief Justices.
Thank you for sharing these suggestions and insights. One question I wanted to ask you was, arbitration is in a lot of discussion in India, and arbitral appeals remain pending for years together. Sometimes arbitral awards delivered in 2009 are up for adjudication in Supreme Court in 2025. Which is like 15, 16 years later. Do you think anything can be done on that? Because that, in a sense, hits at the root of commerce in India. These are industrialists and businessmen who invest in India, who are looking for...
Let me tell you, Tarun, we do not have sufficient number of judges because of a 33% permanent vacancy in all our high courts. Supreme Court is an island, exceptional, because it's only got a few. But 33% at any point of time since independence have been vacant seats in the high courts. And 25% at all times is the figure for the district courts put together. So this has been tried and talked about many times. Special tracks. Have a special track for patents. Have a special track for arbitration. Have a special track. Where? How? We don't have enough. But at least in Justice Gavai's limited term, and how I wish he had a longer term, but anyway, he has a limited term. In my 10-year plus SLP example, all this is covered. And let me tell you, the above 10-year matters are not that many. Maybe within that, if you were to do 4 days a week, or even 3 days a week, more than 10 years, you would easily clear up all the arbitration backlog as well. And in fact, if you do well, you could come down to the 5-year ones also.
One follow-up would be, I saw you appearing in some cases where arrest was unjustified. You directly approached the Supreme Court and got relief also. There you mentioned the case. Anything on the mentioning system that you would like to...
I think, to be fair and honest, although it is not very lawyer popular and litigant popular, I think the best system of mentioning is the absence of mentioning, which Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna has now inaugurated. I'm now talking strictly of Supreme Court. I think personally I would support it completely, and I hope and trust that Justice Gavai continues the same system. Look, let's be frank, there's a lot of chaos, a lot of suddenness, a lot of ad hocism, and a lot of selectivity in mentionings when they were orally, physically done. For the last 5 odd months of Justice Sanjeev Khanna's tenure, or whatever, 7 months, I have not seen that happening because he has eliminated physical mentioning. How has he done that? He has done that by more or less ensuring that a listing is happening on the basis of the email sent. The condition precedent to eliminate physical mentioning is the fairness of reading the email, applying your mind, and listing genuine cases. That, I think, should continue because largely we are now used to it. Let's not restart physical mentioning. The chaos, the selectivity, the special treatment given to seniors at that time, all this need not happen. And I have not heard very many major allegations of any kind about delay in the last 6-7 months. So why change it? Why fix something which is not broken? Now, there is, of course, a infinitesimal fraction of 1 or 2 or 3 cases where it requires immediate listing, the house demolition tonight or tomorrow, the execution, etc., which is always open for physical mentioning. That doesn't comprise even 1 case a month. So I think we must restrain ourselves there. The best mentioning system is the absence of mentioning physically.
Thank you for your comment. It was indeed a pleasure talking to you on this series that we have commenced. Justice Bhushan Gavai as Chief Justice of India, opportunities and suggestions. You shared a lot of your experiences, gave suggestions, shared insights, and it was a pleasure talking to you on this series. Look forward to the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.